there, it's Sandee Sgarlata. Get ready to dive deep into incredible stories of people who've taken life's challenges and turned them into a roadmap to happiness. On this show, we're not just talking about overcoming obstacles. We're uncovering the real, gritty secrets to living a life filled with peace, joy, and genuine happiness. This is Happiness Solved. So let's get started, because happiness is a choice, and the choice is yours. Well, such a pleasure to see you today. How's everything going?
Really good. Pleasure to see you as well.
Good, good. I'm excited to learn about what it is that you do, because in your bio, it leaves it's a little ambiguous. So I'm like, ooh, I have no clue. But for the audience, Will is the creator of Upgrade, right?
Yeah.
It's an abbreviated Upgrade, a revolutionary system that upgrades human mental performance and gains mastery over emotions and habits. So before we dive into that, I'd love to find out what your backstory is, because now you're an internationally sought after as one of the most sophisticated experts of the mind. And how did you get to this point?
Oh, it's a really kind message that my marketing team writes, we tend to find ourselves working with some of the, I would say, definitely elite performers across different, industries. So we're very blessed to have these opportunities and work with great people. That being said, how I got started, it's kind of a long story, but the easiest way to tell it, and you can ask me any questions, of course, you want. It started when I had been building a startup. And after about 2 or 3 years into the startup, it was beginning to plateau. And I felt like nothing I did mattered. Now, I don't know if the audience have felt this way. I'm sure they probably have. Most people have.
I have, sure.
We work hard on something, but it seems like no matter what we do, it seems to just get stuck or it plateaus, right? It doesn't grow as much as we were hoping for. And I was at that point in my life where I was like, okay, I'm putting all this energy into building this. I'm not getting the return I want. What do I do? And I recall that there's a training that I have been looking into for years. And it seemed to, at that point, I didn't know enough about it. It seemed to have what I wanted. And so I went and did a lot more digging, a lot more research. But I'm one of those people that I do trust my intuition. And it was really strong. That was like, hey, you need to go there. And so combining with what I researched and how I felt, I was like, okay, I'm going to jump into this training. And at that point, the training costs as much as my net worth. So I was like, oh man, should I do this? Should I not? And I jumped in and I got to the training. The first question and the final question was, what is the one thing? What is the one thing that you want? If you have it, will make this the best investment ever. And I at first wanted to say money, grow my business out of the plateau, make my money back. But then the instructor actually looked at me and said, there's something bigger that you want. What is it? He could just tell. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what? I think it's my romantic relationship. I want to find the one. And immediately they asked me when, not why, not anything else, but when. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, 5 months. If I can find her in 5 months, it'd be like just incredible. And then without hesitation, the instructor said, okay, we've seen crazier things. How will you know you have found her? And these were very specific questions. He wasn't asking me to justify it or tell him anything related to the reasoning. He just asked me when and how will I know that I've gotten it. Seems to be putting a timestamp and the associated clues or data around the occurrence, basically evidence. So I said, well, I don't know. Well, it's something that hasn't happened yet. He said, you need to design the evidence so your mind knows what to look for. And I'm like, oh. So I began to design the evidence. I began to design the one. And long story short, 4 months and 3 weeks later, I was engaged and found my wife. And craziest part was the week I set the goal, she broke up with her fiance because she was engaged at the time. Now, I wasn't there to persuade her to leave or anything. I didn't know her back then. So I thought that was really curious. And I decided, you know what? What if I could repeat the success of this design formula combined with what I got trained in, see what happens. And I knew I didn't need another wife, so I was like, okay, what is it that I could design? So I was like, well, I could design my ideal client that would solve the business side of the problem. So I began to design my ideal clients. And really shortly after, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go back and do more training. And then people were very interested in what I was doing at the time. Friends were asking, colleagues were asking. So I transitioned from building my startup, which was more engineering and e-commerce related, to training and mental performance. And since then, I had invested, man, $5-6 million into not only researching, improving the methodology, testing, but simply just building this structure out and truly battle testing it. So here we are it's been over 8 years now.
Wow. So what program and training did you go to? Like, what was the training?
So it was actually a combination of a few things, from hypnosis, which how familiar are you with hypnosis?
I mean, pretty familiar.
Oh, nice.
I'm thinking it was some sort of NLP training, but
Yes, there's NLP elements to it too.
yeah.
There's
I mean, I've never
hypnosis.
taken a hypnosis course, but I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Yes. So that was the first training. And then after that, I utilized what I learned about how the mind processes and how language influence our mind to decipher what training to take next. And so after that, I had taken things all the way to remote viewing, which is very much not in that realm, but to me, it improves someone's intuitiveness and ability to scientifically decipher what's real and what's not. So I've taken a wide spectrum of training, and even to things like magic or some really out there stuff, just to get myself exposed and understand
Sure.
what's been around.
Yeah. So you created this system called Upgrade. I understand it's proprietary and all of that, but tell me, can you give me an idea and walk me through how it works?
Happy to. Happy to.
Yeah.
Yes. So what differs Upgrade from everything else? It's not that it's different. It's actually a collection and an aggregation and a simplification. So over the centuries or millennia, we have a lot of different tools, strategies, and techniques that allows us to work with the human mind. However, different systems require different foundations and different setup and different, oftentimes, extensive trainings. Almost like the Karate Kid had to learn how to, do all the basic things before he can learn the real martial arts. Now, what I thought coming from an engineering background was, if that's the case, in order to teach these things and learn these things, it would take a long time, just like history has shown. But technology has showed us a different way of thinking about reality. For example, in the 80s and 90s, we had DOS. And if you want to move a file or delete a file, you have to really know the codes, which was very difficult. If you type the wrong name, you delete the wrong file, and it's terrible.
Right.
Now, you can drag and drop, you can undo. You know exactly how to do things because there's visual feedback.
Right.
Well, what's different about Upgrade now that the proprietary part is that we built a graphical user interface for the mind so that you can interact with your mind visually as if you got an iOS rather than DOS. So now then incorporating all of the different systems and what works and what, frankly, has been difficult to learn, we put it into a visual way so people can learn them, utilize them, oftentimes in minutes. They can learn a technique that might have taken them months or even years.
Okay. So these techniques are helping people to tap into their potential.
So there are 4 main categories of techniques. One is the design category. So essentially designing what people want. Designing what, for example, when I was designing the One, I have discovered that there's a very specific way of designing that can yield, for example, romantically the One, and it's a guarantee that it will work. Or designing the ideal client. So there's a way of designing it that will make sure it works, because if someone follows our design formula, they will learn how to install it using our visual methodologies. So we'll teach them how to install things and design things. Second category is called resolution. So basically, people learn how to resolve negative emotions very quickly. Now, there are a lot of wonderful techniques that has been developed, from Virginia Satir all the way to even people in NLP like Richard Bandler or Tad James. People develop crazy good techniques. What I have seen is that oftentimes some of these techniques require a master to execute them.
Yes.
Our techniques can be taught to a 5-year-old and it'll work.
Wow.
Very different.
That's incredible.
Because I'm like,
So
okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying, so you have the design and then you have the install. So what's next?
So design, install, and then resolution. So
And then
you
resolution.
resolve stuff. And then the final piece, we teach basically a complete optimization of the unconscious, kind of like what you were saying, let people tap into their mind. Now, if they arrive at this phase, they will have learned a lot of things on how to remove things, how to install things. Now they can custom design their own mind and install what they want. What would they want? What else would they want? Well, so I'll get more specific. In optimization, in that word, what I mean is if you now can do all the things I just described, then we're going to teach something called the portal. Now, I don't mean like the sci-fi portals where you walk through and, that would be awesome. We haven't discovered that yet. And what I'm talking about in terms of portal is that metaphorically or quite literally, there's a portal between the non-physical and the physical world. And for example, you have a thought, a goal that you want to achieve in the physical, but it's not like it just goes from non-physical the moment you set it into the physical. It doesn't happen like that. Or in a very good way, but somewhat, silly way, I'll say it like this. Kids have been told that boogeyman's hide in the closet. Now, if every time they have a thought, it shows up, that would be terrifying, right? So our human thoughts don't just go into the physical like that. But a lot of it has to do with the relationship between the conscious and the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind does not want to open that portal because we know some of the thoughts we don't want in the physical world. Well, then how can we train it so that it trusts us enough that it opens up on demand? So now this dives into some of the European revival. During the Renaissance, there was a lot of study of magic, but really the end goal was alchemy and how to basically turn a thought into reality, transmutation. But without even using any of those terminology, in my engineering thinking, I was thinking, how can we get what we have in our mind and bring it into the physical with less resistance? So really the final phase is how do we reduce, if not remove, the resistance or the membrane or the portal, whatever it is that it has on our ability to create. So from designing, installing the design to resolving stuff, now we're like, okay, now it's time to fine tune. How do we take what we designed, not only install it into our mind now, and resolve all the boundaries and limitations, but now let's bring it into the physical.
This is really, really interesting. And is this like I'm curious, is this an app that people are working with on their phone? Like, how are you delivering this information? How are they receiving it? Yeah.
Great question. So there are 3 ways. One is AI. So I built an AI that literally can teach 80 to 95% of what I just talked about.
Okay.
And it's now some people might say, well, what's the difference between using that and ChatGPT or any of the other ones? It's more like ChatGPT is like vegetables and meat, but this is how does a chef prepare it, and it's the instruction of how to cook like a Michelin star. So in simpler words, really the engine behind it could be ChatGPT, could be any of them, but it's the custom decision trees, logic, how things flow and how things are answered and how things are taught in a certain sequence. That is the magic sauce behind it. So I've constructed an AI that allows you to talk to myself face to face, like a FaceTime call. And you can ask that, you can talk about that, you can do all that. And that will teach the concepts of upgrade. So that's one, which makes it very scalable, right? It does not
Right.
require me.
Right.
But in the future, we're going to be building that. We're going to be licensing basically upgrades, special sauce to other people out there so that they can have, whether it's a business owner or another coach that want to leverage our content, they can easily use our AI powered by Upgrade, and they can, so just making it easy for people. Second is they can come to our training. We, at this point, still have live in-person training where we can transfer this knowledge and practice and have people, work with each other. Obviously, one of the fastest ways to learn. And then lastly, we create an environment that's very compelling. So we have certain networking meetings, and combining with that, people can also watch online our training. So they can watch our training and they can come to our networking meeting and mingle with people that are like-minded. So that's our third way of delivery.
Love it. Oh, that's awesome. So what are can you give us an example of like a success story of somebody that one of your clients that worked with you came and what success did they accomplish as a result of using the system?
Absolutely. Yeah, we disclaimer, right? Obviously, whenever I share testimonials, we have to say that these are not typical results.
Okay.
So John Madsen, who came to us in about 2020, he was an entrepreneur, had a business that was doing about 20,000 a month. He was a fitness coach. However, that 20,000 also meant close to 20,000 of expenses, sometimes more, because he was running a gym pre-COVID. Long story short, he changed not only the way he thinks, but the entire operating system that he's running with through our training. He jumped into one of our higher end trainings. So he really got the in-person stuff, as well as got the virtual stuff and the environment, all that fun stuff. Back then we didn't have AI. Right now he's doing anywhere between 1 to 2 million plus per month.
Oh, wow.
It's a massive jump from 20,000 to 1 to 2 million. Now, once again, I'm not going to say this is typical, but he is someone who's not typical in a sense that he really went all in to studying and applying and using the tools. We have another lady who, her name is Spring. She was a real estate agent and doing decent when he joined us, about 20, 30 something thousand a month, similar range as John. And her goal was to hit 300 in a single month. So fast forward, it wasn't overnight, but I think it was about 2 years or so. She's been consistently doing about 300K. Now that's really great. I don't have her bank statement to show people, right? But that's what she's been publicly claiming. And because of that, she and John and others have referred us a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. That's incredible. So how does this work in terms of, first of all, childhood trauma?
Childhood trauma.
Yeah, most of us have childhood trauma, and that childhood trauma is blocking us from accomplishing many things in our life.
Certainly. I think the secret, if I may speak, without any just surface level, I would say oftentimes from childhood trauma is oftentimes caused by generational trauma.
Yes.
Parents trauma being passed down, and we unknowingly suffer for it without the tools and resources because our parents haven't finished dealing with it. And some researchers out there are saying 5 to 15 generations of trauma can be passed down.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I believe it.
now, what's interesting is in just the last 5 to 6 generations alone, we've had to have about 4,000 ancestors. So we're talking about exponential amount of people having trauma passed down. So it's not just like, 5 to 6 generations, just a few people. No. 400 years. In 400 years, we can have 4,000 ancestors. So we're talking about thousands, if not tens of thousands of people's trauma being passed down. And of course, some get resolved. But then a child who doesn't have the resources and or skills or oftentimes the environment, they are left in a modern environment with even more distractions and opportunities to experience trauma, now they get all of that loaded on them. So the short answer is, yeah, we haven't seen too many people with very minimal child trauma. I haven't met a person without any childhood
No.
trauma.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. You can't. We come into this world with trauma, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the one question I had. How does this work in terms of our ego? Because the ego is always coming in and telling you, no, you're not good enough. You can't do that. Don't do that. Don't try this. How does,
This meaning upgrade or
yeah, upgrade.
ah. So every feeling, every message, there's feedback. So especially emotions, they are like a message delivery mechanism. So oftentimes instead of what a lot of people do, which is suppress or ignore, we ask our students, we teach them tools to be able to resolve these feelings so they can look at these messages without biases, without any sort of negative emotion. So, when it comes to having these the voice coming from the ego, if you may, I would say it's not usually a big deal when people learn our resolve process because they can resolve them
Okay.
very, very quickly. Our resolve process literally can be as short as like 4 seconds if well practiced.
Well, because that's just it. I mean, you're teaching these tools, and it's up to the person purchasing the system and participating. They have to take action. They have to practice it.
Yeah, and we've made it so easy. They could either show up to the training, show up to hang out with our community members and watch some videos, or simply just call the AI and talk to them.
Wow. Wow. How can people learn more about this? I'm sure you have a website.
Yeah, we do. We have upgrade.com, upgrade spelled as UPGRD. We're in the midst of a massive update on the website because we get a lot of business through referrals and people just, it's easy to trust your friend who had massive results that, you're like, okay, let me just talk to them. So our website has been, I mean, it's fine, but it's not updated yet. I will be having a major update coming out, which will have those three components from AI to community. But yeah, they can find out about us there. We have a podcast called The Upgrade as well, which is also spelled UPGRD.
Nice. Oh my gosh. This sounds so incredible. I'm definitely going to check it out because I'm so curious now about how this works. One thing that I did want to clarify for the audience, when you talk about upgrading, you're talking about, like, almost in a sense, like reprogramming your mind, like rewiring is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I just,
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify that our minds are like an operating system, and
With a
there's ways to.
very specific focus of improving effectiveness and efficiency. And even more specifically, allowing us to take what we want in our mind and bring it into the physical. So that's the objective. Because if we just reprogram, sometimes it's like, okay, what are we reprogramming it for?
Right. Because you want to reprogram it for specific results.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds incredible. Wow. This has been
Thank
so
you.
fascinating. Will, is there anything else about this that I didn't ask you about, that you didn't talk about, that you'd like the audience to know before we finish up?
Oh man, there is always so much more to talk about. I think that if there's one thing that I may bring up that would be fun for the audience to do, it's something called rewards. So humans oftentimes live in a not only environment, but in our own mind in a way that is like, how much pain can I endure on my way to success? I mean, if we just look back 100 years, how many wars, how many famines, how many problems, conflicts, our minds naturally turn to scarcity thinking. How much pain am I willing to endure to create success? So when it comes to reprogramming and upgrading, one of the things that we can all do as we're thinking about this is, what do I really want as rewards? So that instead of saying what how much pain will I endure, or am I willing to endure, how much pleasure am I willing to endure on my way to success? So a practical exercise, which we've actually, one of our most popular trainings, the beginning concept is design 100 things and 100 experiences that we want as rewards. So I encourage, if I may, the audience to consider, what if I could just sit down and write? Most people run out of things very quickly because we haven't spent long enough thinking about what we want. But that's basically the exercise to then expand our list, expand our thinking in, well, how much pleasure can I endure?
Yeah, that sounds fun. I think I'd
Right?
enjoy that.
Right? That's what makes life exciting.
Well, yeah, because there's so much opportunity if we open up our minds to it.
Indeed. Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. Man, it's been a
What's
great
next?
pleasure, Sandy.
Yeah, what is next for you?
We have, in short, we have a couple of projects. I'm working on a biotech to help people go from sympathetic functioning to parasympathetic functioning. So reduces the body's reaction, negative reactions to stressors. And so we're working with scientists and doctors because this will help me in upgrading humanity rather than just expecting people to use our trainings, for example, which takes an investment of time and energy and attention. Well, biotech does not. It's easy as you literally taking a supplement or something like that, right? But nothing like that has been specifically built for this purpose, to upgrade humanity. The closest thing is longevity, right? But this will include that functionality. And then also improving performance without stimulating the body,
Right.
like caffeine. Nothing wrong with using caffeine, but there's only so much we can push. But instead, what if we reduce unnecessary expenditure of energy and preserve and get the systems to synchronize? So we're doing some things in the biotech side that are proprietary, and I'm buying a patented technology to help us. So it should be fun. I think this will be beneficial to the population, and it does not compete against pharmaceutical interests or anything. If anything, it just aids people, help people in all aspects. And then lastly, we're working on something for the educational sector, using what we do at Upgrade to help educators, students, and parents.
Oh, that is so needed.
Yeah.
That is so needed in today's world. Wow. Well, thank you, first of all, for putting all of your time and resources into creating this, because I know I'm a serial entrepreneur myself, and I know that
Oh,
it's a
nice.
lot of time and money and a lot of sweat equity. And
Yes.
so thank you for doing this. And folks, you can check out Will at his website Upgrade, which is upgrd.com, and sounds phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. It's been wonderful being with you. Your energy is phenomenal. So I'm so glad we
Oh,
got to meet.
thank you. Thank you so much. And for everybody listening today, I hope you and your family stay healthy and happy, and that your lives are filled with peace and happiness. Take care, everyone.